Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Bold Business. I'm David Grasso from GenFKD, a nonprofit dedicated to helping millennials understand money and entrepreneurship, which is quite a tall order sometimes.
I'm Lyndsay, Chrisitan, and Happy New Year to you. We hope you enjoyed the holidays. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to share your comments throughout the show via Facebook and Twitter because we want to hear from you. Please send us your comments. We will be addressing them throughout the show.
Yeah, we actually use those, folks.
We do.
So, yeah, chime in, please. So, anyway, joining us for our headline segment is a friend of Bold's and incidentally a friend of mine as well. I guess I am a Bold TV person. Valentin Schmid. He's the business editor at Epoch Times. Welcome back, Valentin. How you doing this morning or this afternoon?
Thanks for having me.
This started off as a morning show, and I can't get morning out of my head.
Morning, afternoon.
Great to see you. So, what's been happening in business news since we've been gone?
Yeah, Valentin, what's going on?
Well, I can tell you what's going on. The stock market is the big deal where people were awoken from their slumber the last 2 years when this market just bubbled up, up, and then when it went down like 0.5%, people got scared, and now just the last few days it went down 3%. Today it's up 4%. It's basically completely crazy, and there's three themes that people are now paying attention to that have changed for the worse since October. A is the Fed. I'm going to elaborate in a second. B is China. And we had Apple coming out with a China warning. And C is the government shutdown.
Well, let me pause you right there, Valentin, because I want to give our viewers a little background about stocks. As you mentioned, according to Business Insider, Apple plunged billions of dollars in pre-market trading on Thursday, dragging down global stocks after a shocking sales warning. Apple CEO Tim Cook told Market Insider the Dow declined 600 points due to an unanticipated drop in sales in the world's second largest economy, China. So, Valentin, continue your three themes here. We already mentioned.
Yeah, we can kick off with Apple and China. Both of those, actually, there's another theme here because you have those FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Netflix that basically were responsible for half the gains in the whole stock market in the last 3 years. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but a lot. And now you see problems with those companies. Facebook is getting sued by the District of Columbia. Apple has its operating margin declining, and it doesn't surprise me that they came up with this number, not just because the Chinese economy is slowing, that's another risk, we come to that later, but because Apple, people thought, the sort of the Steve Jobs years can continue forever, where they just bring out a new gadget and then they sell it for $1,000 and they keep up those high margins. But no, the margins have been declining, and especially in China, because the people that like the domestic brands, they prefer that to Apple or especially Samsung. So both of these things are very sensitive to the market. And China, if you probably don't remember if you don't watch the stock market on a daily basis, but the last time we had a lot of volatility was in 2016. And that was when the Chinese real estate slowed down, the Chinese growth slowed down, the Chinese credit growth, how they stimulate the economy slowed down. And the markets also there were down 15%, in one move. But then what happened? The global central banks started to turn around and said, for example, the Fed said, well, we want to hike interest rates, but we are going to delay it a little bit. And the ECB said, well, the European Central Bank said, well, we're printing some money, but let's print more. And the BOJ said, we'll also print more. And then the stocks turned around and started bubbling up. So that's the other thing that has changed. The Federal Reserve especially has very clearly stated, although today is another different story, but we'll talk about that later, they're going to keep raising rates commensurate with what they think the economy is doing. The economy is doing well, so they're going to keep raising rates. Bad for the markets, very bad, because previously when the markets were down 10 or 15%, then the Fed always came around and said, well, we'll do something. And actually today, Powell, he had an interview with the other previous Fed chairs, and he did something similar. But that, to me, is just jawboning, because he said, well, we can reverse our policies anytime we think it's necessary. So we reverse the tightening and go back to easy money. Yeah, but he can always do that, and he can always say that. But is he going to do it? Last time he said something very bullish in December at a speech, and then at the meeting, they came back and the market raised rates. They said balance sheet reductions definitely going to continue. Markets tanked. We had the worst Christmas Eve on record because of that. So the central banks have turned around. We'll see what happens at the end of January, whether Powell actually thinks changes are necessary or not. Until then, we're going to see them trying to talk up the market, and maybe we'll have a little rally. And then let's come to the last point, which is the government shutdown. The government budget deficit last year was $1 trillion, roughly speaking. $1 trillion in the boom time economy. Supposedly they're only supposed to spend money when there's a recession. But no, they spent $1 trillion last year, I mean net, so a deficit of $1 trillion. But with the government shutdown, is that going to continue? Probably not, at least not for the time being, because they're arguing over all sorts of spending measures. So you've got these basically four things, if you include the tech stocks, that are weighing negatively on the stock market, and that are basically a game changer since the 2016 flip-flop of the central banks and the 2017 Trump pro-growth policies. Because there's nothing in that pipeline either, because the Democrats now control the House. So no more tax cuts and, not that much spending if they can't agree.
So outside of politics in the major markets, let's talk about something closer to home. Go ahead, Lyndsay.
Sure.
The job market is starting to stall, and here's a couple little tips.
Yeah, so your new year may be off to a rocky start. If you're an MGM casino employee, according to Bloomberg, MGM, the largest casino operator on the Las Vegas Strip, plans to boost its profit by $300 million a year through new cost cuts. The famous casino chain foresees that 50% of its profit will come from labor saving and the rest through improved sourcing of supplies. So, do we think MGM's current employees will suffer from this shift? Valentin, weigh in on that.
Well, no comments on my extensive monologue on the stock market.
Well, we're hoping that we'll have a turnaround this new year.
The job market shown signs of health in the last report. The report came back with a lot of jobs, but already companies are positioning themselves for harder times, and we see MGM.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's another sign that basically, to begin with, the strong job numbers are always like a mid to late cycle sign. So you could already have a sort of start of a recession, and you could have one or two very strong job reports, sort of signaling the last spike. So
we might be seeing that right now. This might be peak jobs.
It could be. It could be. And MGM, the most far-sighted businesses, it depends on the management, not just the industry, they can position themselves for downturns. And that means reducing operational leverage. What does that mean? And also financial leverage. What does that mean? Scale down on debt, scale down on costs, and then you can weather the downturn, however it may play out. You can weather it better. But I think that's like the exception rather than the rule at this moment. Companies like MGM, yeah.
Well, Valentin, always great to hear your commentary, far-reaching
thank you
this
for
time.
Your monologue. No, it was great and very insightful.
Very insightful. Thank you, Valentin.
Thanks for having me.
So anyway, moving on to our next topic. If you're thinking about swapping out those air miles for a personal jet, don't we wish? A friend of old here, Hunter Gaylor, aviation expert, joins us on Skype to share the pros and cons.
Welcome, Hunter.
Hi, how are you, David? Good to see you.
Likewise, Hunter and I know each other, so.
Well, there you go. So that means you may have a little more insight about how we can fly our way into a nice, affordable jet. What's the tip, Hunter?
Well, it all depends on what credit cards you're using nowadays. There's tons of points and bonus miles for signups and things like that. And obviously, we're seeing a really good boost in the private jet sector, especially with sales we're seeing, rising in the Middle East and in Asia with some of our Asian clients moving from, obviously, the Gulfstream G550 is a wonderful aircraft, and its sales numbers are starting to increase rapidly. We're starting to move a lot of those. So that's both on the private side, which it's really expanding. I mean, it's massively expanding, so we're happy about that.
So, Hunter, for someone who's never flown private, what is it like? Can you explain to people that there's no security and all that stuff?
Because and the luxury.
It really
is like rolling out the red carpet to just VIP status.
It is. I mean, we look at it as a business tool for a lot of our corporate clients. I mean, it's not having to show up in the airport and deal with crowds and TSA and security. Obviously, we do have immense security that happens behind the scenes with, a lot of database checking and things like that, because security is one of the most important aspects of this, especially when you're putting corporate executives that are responsible for tens of thousands of employees that have to get from city to city and country to country in a timely manner. So really, it's the ultimate convenience, and we look at it as the ultimate form of luxury transportation and travel, just from the form of comfort, safety, security. really it's the way to go. There are some alternatives, membership models you're seeing pop up like Wheels Up and other organizations like Jet SuiteX, which is doing more regional, which gives you a little bit of the taste for as far as affordability is concerned. You can pick up a flight from Los Angeles to, say, Oakland or the San Francisco area for $200 for a shuttle flight, and that's a semi-private. And that's on a nice little aircraft, good interior. You can get your unlimited alcohol if that's what your vices are. So it is definitely the best way to travel if you can ever experience it.
You know, I learned about private charter flights rather through DJ Khaled and a lot of celebrities on Instagram, and they just flaunt the luxury and kind of give us a behind the scenes, which is really cool. So hopefully one day, David, you and I can charter a private jet.
I've been semi-private, not completely private.
Okay. Hunter, so I know I'm very familiar with a lot of apps out there that help to engage customers and connecting to charter jets, rather. You co-founded Howler Applications, a marketing platform. Tell us more about that.
Well, that was back when I was in college. I had just finished my senior year. We had started a large marketing company, a technology company. Howler is one of the first applications you could download on your phone that when you're walking around a city, you could get real-time deals or ads to your device. And we were kind of looking at the first ever pay-per-click model, but in the real world, not just the online. So when you see an ad online, you click it, we know that ad was successful. But in the real world, you don't know if a billboard works or really a commercial you see on TV works for a particular consumer. So what we were able to do is take that application and put it in a real world environment. So when you're walking past a store, you actually get an alert on your device catered to you, and we would know if that phone actually goes into a particular retail location. And so we had some success with that, and then that kind of bridged us in and using some of our back-end technology to move into the aviation space, and it's allowed us to do a lot of consumer learning. So when you talk about DJ Khaled and all of these other people that are getting us an experience, that's the power of social media to show you, how you're able to move kind of an influencer. What DJ Khaled and a lot of these people do that actually I charter and fly, as a matter of fact, what they do is they'll serve as brand ambassadors or marketing ambassadors for some of these new app companies like a JetSmarter or a Wheels Up or a membership type based in the aviation space, or even commercial airlines. We want to drive more traffic for ticket purchases during the holidays. You'll see a lot of celebrities using their social media and their targeted influencer reach to help drive ticket sales. So my technology background has helped serve well in kind of the international aviation marketplace.
Okay, Hunter, we're out of time, but we have two quick questions. One is, how much does this cost? Just a ballpark figure. And number two, in less than 15 to 20 seconds, you're just a kid from the Space Coast of Florida who's made it. Yep. What is your advice for others? Okay, so the first question is very quickly, the best way to fly is to fly with me. The cost is from New York to LA, anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000, depending on what aircraft you want to use privately, or else just go get your JetBlue Mint seats. Those are pretty good too. And then as far as coming from the Space Coast, it's work. It's really just every day you wake up and work. Tenacity beats sound intellect every day is what I like to say. And a lot of my mentors and professors have always said the same, that if you just wake up every day and you put in the effort, that later on down the road you'll find the level of success that you're looking for. Well, that's great, Hunter, and thank you for actually following directions and keeping time. We wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
Have a good one.
You too. So we all ring in the new year with new resolutions, hopefully, and a healthy bank account. But how can we maintain a healthy financial future long term? I'm really excited to welcome my personal friend, Sherkera Green. She's an executive market director at a major bank in the city.
Welcome, Sherkera. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
We're glad to have you.
So you've moved up the ladder in the financial industry. What's your secret? What should we know?
Oh, wow. Well, I started off 15 years ago actually as a teller. And my story is very unique because typically you don't see a teller move up to a senior executive position. I think my secret has been to just really show up, do the work, be available, always always willing to learn and always being coachable, right? I learned early on to dress for the role that you want, not for the role that you have. The importance of having a mentor and also a sponsor. The most important decisions about your career is always when you are not in the room. So you need someone to be an advocate for you. And some of those tips have just helped me throughout the way.
15 years. Wow. And all of those tips are certainly applicable not only in the banking industry, but in all industries.
Absolutely.
So what are some financial tips you can share around achieving your financial goals in the new year? Because that's really important.
You work with money. Tell us what you know about money.
Yes. So know a lot about money, but it's more about discipline. And when you put a goal in place, a goal is something that you set out to really, really achieve, right?
Discipline.
Really? Yes.
We associate discipline with like my second grade teacher disciplined me.
No, but so I take kind of like the same approach I do with running my business and being a leader is the same way with your financial goals. Put a plan in place, and that goal and that plan needs to be SMART. So SMART stands for it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be attainable, realistic, and timely. Look at you.
Great. Smart.
Goals. Did
you write that down?
Look at that. And it works. It works. So sometimes we focus on the end result, but it's really about what do you do the in between, right? And how are you being intentional about achieving that goal? I always recommend, my second tip is to just create a budget or readjust your budget for the year, right? Looking at really how much are you bringing in, what is your net income, and then what are your liabilities? And don't forget and underestimate the importance of miscellaneous. About a year ago, I took a look at my finances, and I couldn't believe I was spending over $450 a month just eating out. And so when I really had to step back and say, okay, Sherkera, what are you looking to achieve? How much extra could you be putting away if you budget? And again, that discipline, maybe eating out once or twice a week. And I was able to put away an extra $300, right? So just really creating a budget that works for you, being honest about it. My third tip would be pay yourself. You work hard, right? And so before I pay anybody, I make sure to pay Sherkera and what I could really afford to pay myself. That's so important. I don't care how much you make, even just putting away $25 or $2,500 if that's what you could afford to do, but put something away. The importance of savings is incredible. Another great tip is how do you use credit? A lot of times we see credit as being like a negative thing, but it's actually not. So one of the things that I like to do is I have various different credit cards. One credit card is for my travel expenses, and I get a various amount of reward points. I also have a credit card that I use for my day-to-day spending where I get 3 times the points if I use it for restaurants or gas purchases.
Which one is that?
Of course. The one with
tell you all the ones that are in my wallet.
It's in your wallet.
Capital One, actually. There you go.
Well, there's some others out there that are very competitive.
Yeah, I also have a Chase Sapphire, of course.
Awesome.
So it's great to compare to. A lot of people don't take the time to compare rates,
credit cards,
and
rates.
product.
Yes, absolutely, right?
I travel on credit card rewards. People don't understand how I travel so much, and it's like I put absolutely everything on the credit card. I don't carry a balance, but then I use the points to travel. And sometimes it doesn't cover the entire cost, but if I have to go home to Florida, it's nicer to pay $50 instead of $300.
Bingo, spot on. And that's the recipe. And so sometimes the credit piece could work towards your savings goal. So same thing. So, and being smart to pay it off, that balance off before the end of the cycle.
It's not you're paying interest on food, people.
Yes.
You don't want to pay interest on that burger and fries you got last month.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the last tip I would say is be willing to take risk. So about 2 years ago, I had set a goal out to purchase my first investment property. And I live in New Jersey, so I was doing some research what the interest rates would be. And I decided to think outside of the box. And I purchased my property in Greensboro, North Carolina. Had it built from the ground up for $100,000. I put 10% down. That rental property is giving me an additional $650 of rental income.
That's a game changer.
Smart.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to take risk. Hold yourself accountable. If you are not good at that, then get an accountability partner. And I hope that these tips will help everyone in the new year.
These are so helpful.
I bought my first investment investment house last year, built it from the ground up in Orlando, Florida.
There you go.
So
Look at the properties.
Yeah,
I wanted you to touch quickly on social media, not only social media, but apps. There's so many apps that help us to budget.
Great point.
And remind us to save or remind us if our
Woo,
account.
woo, you're spending too much. I have those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So I encourage everyone to always take advantage of using their online banking and bill pay, the mobile platform service, that whatever bank you bank with, but setting alerts. So every time my account gets to a certain balance, that alert goes through if a check clears. And that's just a really good way to keep yourself.
No excuse anymore.
No
people.
excuse to be financially savvy.
Overdraft or to not have
That's
savings. I mean, we live in a world of instantaneous information.
Bingo. Spot on.
Remember when you used to have to go to the ATM and get a receipt to check your balance? Does anyone remember that?
Listen,
I'm old enough for that.
Now you don't even need a credit card to access the ATM anymore. You can get a code.
Everything
And so
is
there's so many different resources that are out there. So thank you so much. This was awesome.
This was really hard. Okay, so SMART. Tell us again. SMART stands for?
SMART. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
All right.
For
we hope you wrote
goals,
it down.
remember those
goals for the
SMART
new
goals,
year.
yes.
We're going to save a lot. We're going to make a lot this year. I'm putting it out in the universe. Thanks to
Me
Shakira's
too.
You're a
tips.
great advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
coming on, Shakira.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, switching gears a bit from staying financially prepared, which we all struggle to do, let's talk about avoiding cyber attacks. We're happy to welcome Scott Augenbaum. He's the retired FBI special agent. Ooh, secret agent,
FBI.
man. And now he's a cybersecurity expert.
Welcome, Scott.
Good afternoon.
FBI. Where's
My
your
job,
badge?
no, nothing today. My job today is, everything that you learned from your last speaker, I want to make sure you don't lose that by cyber criminals.
So, yeah, tell us how businesses can really avoid those cyber attacks, protecting their data, really.
Yeah, in my 30 years with the FBI, I spent about half of it working cybercrime. And during that time, what did I see? The victims all had the same things in common. The first one is nobody ever expected to be a victim. They all thought they don't have anything that we really have.
I assume this is all unsafe.
Yeah, me too.
Well, yeah, but think about it. What does a business have? We have, besides money, we have human resources records, we have payroll
Social
records.
security
Stuff, huh?
numbers.
Yeah.
But it's very, very valuable to all of us. And the thing that's very hard for the average person to understand is when the bad guys steal your stuff and you contact law enforcement, the chances of law enforcement getting your stuff back is really, really challenging. And putting the bad guys in jail, most of them are overseas, and it's very, very hard. Crime is not a localized problem anymore.
It's an international problem.
A
So,
global
Scott,
problem.
I see you have a book with you. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, my book is The Secret to
Cybersecurity.
Of cybersecurity, yes. And one of the things that I've learned, and I'd like you to take a look at this, The Secret to Cybersecurity, is that a majority, 90% of what I dealt with in my career could have been prevented. And it broke my heart when I would have to deal with a victim and tell them, we, the FBI, couldn't get their stuff back. We couldn't put the bad guys in jail, but it could have been prevented. So now my goal is to take what I've learned in my 30 years with the FBI to teach people how not to become the next cybercrime victim.
What are some tips you can share with our viewers?
Well, first of all, what we have to realize is email is the attack vector today. You are going to get an email, and it's not going to be from Boris Badnoff at cybercriminal.com. It's going to be from somebody you know and somebody you trust. Think about with the holiday season, what happens if you got an email on December 23rd saying your package has been delayed in shipping and it's from Amazon? How many of us were waiting for packages on December 23rd?
Everyone.
Yeah, we all were.
And if you got that email and it said your package has been delayed, what's the first thing that we normally would do? Click on that link.
Yeah.
And when we click on that link, what happens, it takes us to a website and it's going to tell us we need to log in with our account. So think about this. We log in with something as simple as our Amazon account, and now the bad guy has access to that account.
And that's devastating because our credit cards are attached to that or everything.
But even worse, think about what percentage of the population is using the same password for multiple platforms. Just like with the Marriott breach, with 500 million usernames and passwords for Marriott. So what did Marriott tell us all to do?
Change your password.
Yeah.
But what percentage of the population is using the same password for multiple platforms.
80%.
Now all the bad guys have to do is log in with the username, which is your email account, and the same password, and then the bad guys get access to your bank account. And what can the bad guys do?
Move money.
Oh yeah, they have access to your whole life.
Do a lot of damage.
Right.
So that's why I wrote this book. Because there was nothing out there for the average end user to take advantage of to see the basic things that we need to do, such as we have to recognize that email is an attack vector. So when you get an email, question it. What should you do when you get an email from Amazon? You got to go to your Amazon account.
I usually try to do that. And in fact, if you look at legitimate emails, like I got one from JPMorgan Chase this morning that said you have a new message. And then I have to go into my Chase app to access that message.
Very good. Right. Very, very important. We also can't, as I said, we can't have the same password from multiple platforms. And I highlight that in the book, and I also show people how to come up with safe, secure passwords, because we can't have the same password for every single platform.
Okay, so email, be mindful of emails, changing our passwords, and what are some other tips?
And there's something else out there called multi-factor authentication.
Oh, yeah, like the two-step, which is a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end.
90% of my victims, if they had two-factor authentication, would not have been victims.
I have that on PayPal and Facebook right now, but that's
You need to have it. And I say need to have it on your email accounts, on your bank account, everything social media, because what happens if the bad guys take over a corporate social media account and send a link out to everyone saying, hey, for being such a great friend, here is a coupon for a grande latte at Starbucks. So nobody believes you'd send them a venti, but grande maybe they'll believe it. How many of your followers, if you're a marketing person, do you want to click on that?
None. You don't.
Well, if you're the marketing person, you do, but the bad guy's going to trust that your friends are going to do that. So we need separate passwords. We need to think before we click. We need to become a human firewall, and we need to use two-factor authentication. Those 4 points would really, really solve a lot of problems.
Wow.
Very helpful. I took notes. Because I need to clean up some of my accounts and go back in there.
Yeah, we're all a little messy. Before it was about our finances, which is sometimes embarrassing, but our cybersecurity habits are also very embarrassing in many cases.
And that's why I wrote this book, to go out there, because it broke my heart when I'd have to sit down with a retiree, a nonprofit organization. I've dealt with churches, and the bad guys have gotten into their accounts, stole all of their money, sent emails out to all of everyone on their list.
Wow.
And now I have something that I can help people.
Wow. Well, this is great. Great information,
Scott. An education for all of us.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so we're switching gears. We've talked about healthy bank accounts. Now we're going to talk about healthy bank accounts, healthy cyber activity. Data.
Which we're all terrible at.
Now we're going to talk about
multi-factor authentication.
That's important. Now we're going to talk about healthy lifestyle. So if maintaining a healthier lifestyle is one of your New Year's resolutions,
ding, 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 ding,
which
ding,
it
ding.
should be, then you might want to check your health IQ. Munjal Shah, CEO of Health IQ, is here to share his tips for living a healthy lifestyle. Maintaining one, too.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Tell us about this health quiz, which I took last night, by the way.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah, I'll tell you my IQ in a minute.
I'm sure you did great.
First tell us what it is, and then Lyndsay will talk about it.
Well, let me talk about kind of the bigger idea that we're after here, which is that we have this idea we call health equity. It's a little bit like home equity.
Okay.
And if you think about your home equity, you build it up by, paying your mortgage and doing other great things. But with health equity, you do it by sweat, by good choices, and by having health literacy, kind of a little bit like financial literacy.
Okay.
And what we realized was really your health equity is an asset that you can use to save money.
Of course.
And you can use to save money in a variety of different ways. So our company provides, Health IQ provides special rate insurance for folks who have good health equity. And these are runners and cyclists and vegans and vegetarians, but also people like well-managed diabetics. So if you take care of yourself, we wanted to make sure that you really get an economic financial benefit from that. And hopefully from that incent more people to try to take care of themselves. Like that is
being sick is extremely expensive if you haven't gotten the memo.
In fact, Fidelity recently put out some data saying that it'll cost you have to save $280,000 for your retirement just for out-of-pocket expenses per couple. And then there was another study that came out from the Center for Healthcare Advancement in South Florida that said that if you run, you can save $2,500 a year in expenses on average. So there are, external data that says, hey, this is really an asset. It really does convert to saving you money. We at Health IQ really said, hey, let's pull together all these things, diet, exercise, but also health literacy. And we built really the world's first Health IQ test. And it measures not how healthy you are per se, but how health conscious you are and how much you've taken care of your health and how much you know. And then we put that all together and said, hey, let's use all this information to price your risk and to give you a better rate because you deserve it and you work hard. And that's what we've done. We've actually sold about $15 billion worth of coverage to date. I started this company just out of my own personal journey. So I'm an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I sold my last company to Google in 2010.
That's
and
major.
On the very next day of kind of what should have been the best day of my career to date, I was running a 10K race and I ended up with chest pains and I ended up in the ER. My father had his first heart attack at age 45. I was 37 at the time. Kind of changed my health.
That American diet will give you a heart attack.
Yes. Actually, it's really interesting. My parents moved here when I was very young, and my mom gave us Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, and Pop-Tarts and cinnamon rolls every day. And I asked her later, I said, why did you let us eat that? She's like, this country put the man on the moon. I figured everything here was great. And
maybe everything except that.
Except that. And so, in midlife, I had to kind of change course. But that journey led me to the realization that, maybe that doing it was hard, but that hard work should benefit the people who kind of put it in. And we've not only done this with lower rates for those who are kind of what we call healthy, health conscious, and have taken care of their health well. We've also done it for like well-managed diabetics. So we give well-managed diabetics lower rates than they can get almost anywhere else because taking care of your health is hard.
So wait a second. I want to know how Lyndsay did.
Okay, out of 200, my score was 130.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm pretty health conscious.
Yes.
I am. And I believe I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. I'm a pescatarian. I go to spin class. I'm on the bike.
Not a pescatarian. Don't go to spin class.
But can you speak to the fact that, because a lot of people complain that it's expensive to live a healthy lifestyle, but in the end, it will save you money because
it is expensive.
It's expensive, but you'll stay out of the doctor's office.
No, that is true.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways that a healthy lifestyle saves you money, right? One, we talk about insurance. Second, saving for retirement out-of-pocket expenses. But actually, there's a recent study that I saw. I'll have to find the quotation for it. But it was, they said that living a vegetarian, living in a plant-based diet costs you about $4 a day versus a meat-based diet costs you about $10 a day.
Ooh, I spend more than $10 a day. I have a very meat-intensive diet.
Yeah.
And so right there, you can save some money. Obviously, visiting the doctor's office also, reducing those trips and reducing really the major issues. Right? A few minor ones, like it may save you some money, but it's really the major issues that if you avoid cancer and heart disease and high blood pressure and renal failure in your kidneys because you have some of these issues, like that's what you want to avoid. And health is one of these things that pays really large dividends.
So
it is a financial thing. It just comes a little later in life.
So we have someone who scored a lead on their Health IQ quiz. Zach Jenkins.
Yes.
Congratulations. How are you doing? You had a big problem at 37. How are you doing now?
Oh, how am I doing now? So I've changed my lifestyle, changed my diet, and exercise quite regularly now, and I haven't had any problems since then. So it's knock on wood, so far so good.
So what'd you do in terms of diet? You're a vegan now?
You know, I tried going vegan. I will tell you that was very hard for me. The science does show some very good data supporting a vegan lifestyle and its impact on lower mortality. But
it's
I just ate carbs all the time.
And I love
honestly.
I love dairy.
But I for one of the things I don't do is I don't eat very much dairy anymore. So I actually learned that I even though I was eating milk, drinking milk, and it was fine, and I didn't really have an issue, that I was genetically lactose intolerant. And I learned this from actually my 23andMe genetic test.
They say I am too. I don't buy it. I'm fine.
And actually, when I did it, I instantly lost 10 pounds that month when I gave up.
So maybe
I've been dairy and I didn't lose 10 pounds.
My cholesterol came down 30 points that month. So I did a blood test at the beginning of the month. I did at the end of the month. It's the only
Small
change.
differences really go a long way.
I drink a lot of milk. I had cereal quite a bit. But
Small differences go a long way.
Yeah, little
Small
things like
changes too in your diet and in your
drink
lifestyle.
Alcohol?
I do, but not a lot anymore.
Good.
So I will
for a lot of people.
I'm at a wedding or I'm at a celebration. I will, but you know, I will admit, like, I do get sparkling water in a glass and put some ice in it, because honestly, if you don't drink, you do get harassed at every cocktail party. Why aren't you holding a drink? And you don't want to be that guy. So you just absolutely sometimes, you know, and I don't want to have a conversation every other person about why I'm not having a drink and why I have this company called Health IQ. I'm like, I just want to talk about something else every now and then.
all the time, and no one knows. There's sparkling water in my glass constantly, especially when I want to stop.
But you know, but a lot of the things are simple. Like, I used to always eat a snack after dinner.
After dinner.
Post-dinner snack. I'd be sitting there in bed, you know, and gave that up. I have used a number of just other little simple things, and just I look at my plate and I just try to make sure half of it's veggies. You know, so there's just simple tools like that. I don't drink a calorie if I can avoid it. So no juice, no milk.
Okay.
Like, drinking calories is actually spikes your blood sugar faster. There's a good study by a guy named Robert Lustig. He's an endocrinologist at UC San Francisco, and he's done some really interesting work on how, you know, some of these things just absorb so quickly when they're in liquid form that they spike your blood sugar faster. Like, you know, eat an orange, that's fine, but when you squeeze 5 oranges into an orange juice, there's a lot of sugar in that orange juice.
Before we wrap, tell our viewers the website where they can take the Health IQ.
Just go to healthiq.com/quiz, and you can take the Health IQ test, or you can download our iOS app. And take
not on Android.
We had it
for the rest of us.
Not at the moment, but the and you can assess your Health IQ. You will actually send you a quiz a day after that you can take for fun if you like on all different topics. We really believe that, you know, the world has kind of improved literacy over the last 100 years, but the next 100 is really about health literacy.
Wow, well, I enjoyed taking the quiz, so thank you so much, and thanks for joining us, Munjal.
Thanks for having me.
Health IQ.
So anyway, Lyndsay, now we're going to go from health tips to career tips. Man, we got all our bases covered today.
For the new year, we're set.
Absolutely. So our next guest can coach you into achieving your career goals. That's something we all need to do. We're excited to welcome Benjamin Scott. He's a personal life coach.
Welcome, Benjamin.
Thank you very much. My honor to be here, and thank you for having me.
We are so glad that you're here, because we want to know how we can jumpstart our career goals, or those.
Yeah, put the paddles on us like Baywatch.
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thing is you have to know what you want.
That's important.
That's number one, right?
Okay, just establishing that.
Correct. You can't hit a target in which you don't have. What do you want? That's the number one thing. And then once you've decided once you know what you want, then you've got to decide to be excellent at it, right? So my name is Ben. I developed an acronym, Be Excellent Now. So in everything we do, we can do excellence. I believe God is saved perfection for him or herself, right? But we can be excellent in everything that we do. So when we go out there and we be excellent at that, then we do start establishing a reputation. And our reputation precedes us. Right?
Tell us about this. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change.
Absolutely.
Perspective is everything.
It is.
And
mindset.
Your outlook.
Yeah. So thank you. Mindset matters most. It's not the only thing that matters. It's the same thing with your career. So how I see myself reflects on how I act. And then how I act reflects on the feedback I get from the environment. So if I see myself and I see things that happen to me, if I get stopped by the police officer for speeding, right, that could be an opportunity that I missed of getting in a car accident. So how do I see that?
Perspective.
Perspective matters on everything.
Is that how we interpret failure as well, or, you know, barriers that we encounter?
Absolutely. So again, when we say that the police officer stopped me from speeding, he probably or she could have prevented me from a car accident. But we sometimes don't see that the boss, when they come in and correct me on something or try to change my perspective, that could be a movement in a forward direction. But we get too hung up on the action and miss the gift that we're being given in the correction in and of itself.
Can you talk about really living in the moment, being present in the moment, just like you said, acknowledging the fact that if you are pulled over by the police officer, oh my God, in this moment, I could have avoided a car accident a few miles down the road.
Absolutely.
But being in the moment to really understand kind of where you are in life.
And I would tie that into the law of intentionality. So John Maxwell talks about that in one of his books, right? The law of intentionality. Again, starting with knowing what you want, and then being intentional about what you're going to go and do that, and being intentional in that moment. Your previous guest talked about his plate and food, right?
Right.
So being intentional that I want to be healthy, I'm going to decide before I eat that this is how much I'm going to eat, and this is what I'm going to eat. The same thing with my job, the same thing with my career. When I walk in the door, what am I going to accomplish today with the biggest benefit later on in life? That's the law of intentionality, to be in the moment in which we're in right now and to exceed, be excellent now, and what we're going to do right now. I would also talk about the 3 C's I talk about as well as far as career, right?
Okay.
And that is competence. You got to be good at what you do.
Of course.
Yeah, you do.
Certifications, education, right? Being committed to what you're doing. For wherever you are, be there. If you're at work, be at work. Be present in the moment, as you just said, Lyndsay. And then the last, I think, is very important. It's called your community, also your network. So I was talking to Carrie outside, and she was talking about how the network business is a business of networking.
That's right.
Fair, right? And if we understand our IQ, EQ, and NQ, which are network quotient. So as we talk about career, that once you start establishing your reputation, you're increasing your network, and you're bringing more people into your circle, and that will also then drive your career, your education, your influence.
So Ben, I have a question about leadership, because we have this idea, especially, you know, not to get political on this show, that leaders are strong and they command presence. But what is leadership really all about?
Leadership is about influence. So as I've taught in several of my classes, you can lead your dog, lead your children, lead your husband, lead your spouse, lead your wife, lead a corporation, most important, lead yourself. Leadership is nothing more than influence. And you establish influence by showing people that you care about them and what's important to them. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Talks about seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's influence. So if I listen to what you have to say, give you positive and honest feedback on it, that is leadership. So leadership takes place in no matter where you are in the whole spectrum of your job, of your workplace, and in your personal life. Your question about what is leadership. Leadership is nothing more than influence, and we should have influence with ourselves first.
Wow. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. That is really insightful.
Yeah,
so do you, assuming that as you're coaching, you speak to audiences, crowds, groups?
Yes.
Like, tell us about your kind of your day-to-day.
So my background, I spent 32 years in the United States Army. Was honored to retire as a Command Sergeant Major in the United States Army. So military folks I've talked with. My brother is a U.S. Senator, so I've got to talk to some of the most influential peoples in the federal government. I've talked to, my background in the military was healthcare, so I've talked to healthcare individuals as well. And then I have small groups in which I call masterminds, right? A group of like-minded people after one goal to improve ourselves and having a team doing that. So as I teach and coach and mentor, we do about positive accountability. So I can say this is what I'm going to do, right? So December of 19, I'm going to buy my wife a new Mercedes.
Oh, right.
Right? That's what I'm going to do. I've put that out there. I've got positive accountability coaches outside of me saying, hey, remember what you said you want to do. So as we move forward in anything we do, intentionality, commitment, and increasing our network is extremely important. Not only in life, not only in the workplace, but also in our life and our family.
So this networking thing, you know, the world's become increasingly flattened with the internet, with social media, with LinkedIn. How do we leverage that to increase our influence?
I think we leverage that by being genuine, right? Intentionality. It's not superficial. It's actually caring about what you're saying, the other person, receiving them, and giving honest, true feedback, knowing the individual. We talk in Arbinger Certified Facilitator here as well. So we talk about that in Arbinger, that what I feel and think is just as important as what the other person is thinking and feeling. Sometimes we listen to respond and not listen to understand.
I think most people listen to respond.
Correct.
It's a very common mistake.
So how do we increase our network is when you know that I truly care about you, guess what you'll do for me? You'll go out of your way. But over time, you can fake me out for at the beginning, but later on, you'll get to see through the facade.
Authenticity is so important.
It is.
People can read through that.
Over time, absolutely. You can fool me for a minute, right? But after I get to know you for a little while, I get to see who the true you is, and therefore I will adjust to that. But if I'm true with you, if I'm authentic to you and care about what you say and what you do, it shines through all the time. But again, yes.
Well, it's been such great chatting with you. And Paul Ambersley says that's my mentor and friend. So say hello to your friend who's watching.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. Thank you, Paul. He's a great American.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for those career tips.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So moving on to our next guest, man, we have all our bases covered. So now we're going to move to the kiddos. So Monica Eaton-Cardone, she's the co-founder and COO of Chargebacks 911, and she's here to talk about its program, Paid for Grades for Kids.
I can't wait to hear more about this. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us how kids, I just think this is the cutest concept, how they can earn money while learning, a great incentive.
It's definitely something that's needed. So we've ran this program in 2013, or since 2013, for about 6 years, just in Florida. Hopefully this...
Florida!
Yes, I know. Go Florida! And, you know, hopefully people get inspired by this and it becomes something that we can really introduce nationwide. So here's how it works. It really targets at-risk teens. And what we find, especially in the county where I'm from, Pinellas County, this is, you know Florida, right? It's, I mean,
Tampa Bay area.
Yes,
St.
the graduation rate is absolutely horrible.
And a big gap between the rich and the poor.
There is. Yeah. And you know what? These kids just aren't getting the attention that they need. But it's not just the kids. It's not just the parents. It's that whole village, you know, concept. So what we decided to do in 2013, we're an employer, of course, and we needed to hire a bunch of entry-level jobs. And, you know, we found with all of the high school kids that we were hiring right, you know, a few blocks away from our premise, that the biggest barrier to getting them to the next level was themselves. It was actually just confidence. And it didn't, you know, many of them weren't graduating, but even if they weren't graduating, they could get a GED, they could turn their life around. And so what we decided to do, we thought, you know, we can either recruit in a different area or we can do something about it. This is in our backyard. So we developed a program just as a pilot in 2013. We thought, you know what, let's see if we can change these statistics. Let's actually create a scholarship program for kids that would never get a scholarship. Because as we know, if you screw up in your freshman year, you're destroyed.
You're toast.
You're toast. You have no chance, right? So we thought, what talks to kids? Any kid. Well, cash speaks, right? Cash is king.
Money talks.
So we thought, you know what, let's give $500 to any kid that signs up. They go through an online course. We're going to teach them life lessons. We're going to build their confidence, teach them real-world skills, and they have to improve their attendance and grade. And then we're going to pay tutors at the school and give a reward to the school. So now we've involved that whole community aspect, but it's a paid-on-performance type of nonprofit initiative. And what we found was incredible results.
What's been the success rate? Like, and how long is the program? That were my two questions.
So the program started in 2013, so we've been running for about 6 years. Our registration is up by 6